Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra patch notes review. The patch notes have dropped last night and the patch is about to drop, so it's time to take a look and talk about the balance changes, what they mean, how I feel about them, and so on and so forth. So before we dive right in, you know the drill. Hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't yet. Only takes a couple seconds, really helps the channel out and helps the channel grow, and means you don't miss out on future updates regarding Runeterra. Alright, so first off, we have the already announced change to Aurelion Soul's level up condition, so now he requires 25 plus total power rather than 20, so he levels up notably harder. That doesn't always matter, but there are actually like a fair share of games where you could potentially win, like for example the next turn without an open attack by doing some stuff and fighting through, and then if Aurelion Soul levels and their Celestials cost 0, you can't win anymore, especially if they found a living legend. So yeah, it's a solid change. It's a small one that won't matter in that many games, but I think it's a good change ultimately that sort of makes Aurelion Sol a little less of an immediate I win button the next turn than it was in the past. And I think it's particularly important because of the existence of living legends, because Aurelion Sol level up next turn, living legend is a complete game breaker. Like no deck can beat that at that point usually. It's pretty ridiculous. So yeah, I like that. It also gives you a little more time, like they say here, to potentially get rid of Aurelion Sol the next turn before he goes off really big. To be fair, the biggest part of his power, I think, is the Invoke 7+, followed by like getting a free Celestial each turn, and that still remains. Then we have follower and spell changes. First we have Radiant Guardian. This has been talked about in the community a bunch now, and people were basically expecting this to be nerfed in some way. I think most people were banking on a nerf to the defense because the card is effectively a 6 health unit, and we all know 5 cost, like 5 6s are kind of the bar for too good, especially if they have upsides, like here tough and lifesteal. Like tough is not just making it virtually a 5/6, it makes it even better than that in a way. So most people would have expected or hoped for like something like a 5/4 change. The 4/5 is okay, but I honestly would have liked the 5/4 more, so Guardian trades with other like 5/5s in its class, so it only gains 5 life once and then dies. It is much more manageable. Problem is now as a 4/5, it's still about as obnoxious as it used to be against aggressive decks because it's still super hard to deal with. Against 5/5s, it trades over 2 turns, meaning you still get 8 health instead of 10, so not that big of a deal there. So a nerf is better than no nerf, but I personally think I would have preferred potentially to lose a health point here, so you can like jam into it with your Gangplank and trade, for example, and then they gain 5, which is already bad, but at least it's gone, and they don't gain like another 5 or 10 or another like 4 or 8, depending on what they can do. But yeah, it's a pretty good change and a much needed one. Also here, as they mentioned, like power reduction and lifesteal potential, which will allow opposing units and champions Darius, Hecarim, to make more profitable attacks when she's on the board, which is noteworthy. I think that's a kind of a good point for the loss of the attack, but all in all, I think in the end it matters more how sticky and how hard to deal with Guardian is as opposed to before, since honestly attacking into Radiant Guardian without trading benefits the Guardian controller. So Hecarim is not that great of an example because they can just block Hecarim anyway and take 0 damage, because even the 4 damage from the horses, from the riders, is absorbed, and Hecarim is left as a 5/1 and Guardian as a 4/1. So yeah, I don't know about that. I probably would prefer to just I guess not necessarily in the Hecarim example, but in a lot of cases, like I said, I would prefer to just trade, get rid of it, one and done. But that's the way it is right now. Then we get a small change to Inspiring Mentor, which is pretty nice. They wanted to get the card back on the map a bit, and I think it's pretty good because as a 1/2 that was weirdly offensive with the +1 buff, the card was in a bit of a weird spot, and I think this is a really nice change that will make the card more appealing. Not sure if it will see that much play right now because there is just not really an Ionian style deck that wants it, but something like Elusives that is not Allegiance with Kinku, for example, could enjoy this a lot more. Now, I already played this in my Braum Elusives, for example, that didn't have Wayfinder, and now this is even better in decks like this. We'll see in what else it might show up. Then we have a buff to Pix. Card is still unplayably bad, I think. Honestly, I think they might have to make it like an 0/3, so it has a reasonable chance in the early game to survive the first attack and sort of have its effect 2 times before dying. I don't think that would be too much, honestly, since it's still it has no attack. So I think that would be interesting to make the card actually a real consideration in Constructed. The way it is right now, the card is still useless. Speaking of 5-cost 5/6s, Jack the Winner was kind of an offender in this regard, given that Harsgard kind of taught us how good a 5-cost 5/6 with upside is, and Jack is no different, and I think it was a good change to nerf him here. That also means if you use Sleep with the Fishes on Jack himself, he is much more in range of being answered by a bunch of the deals free stuff. So that's another noteworthy effect of that change. But yeah, all in all, he's still going to be very good. I think he will still see plenty of play. He will maybe see slightly less play and will be less appealing to jam into sort of mid-range decks. Like for example, BBG just jammed 3 Jack in his sort of Allegiance Bilgewater deck with a Noxus Splash, and he's less of a slam dunk there. He's still good even in a deck like this, but he's less of a slam dunk and there's more space concerns to fit him. But yeah, basically a good tone down, I think, that was justified since the card was actually a bit overtuned. Then we see a reversion on the Petty Officer buff. I'm a bit sad about this one, honestly. I felt Petty Officer was very good, but felt also pretty nice. He didn't feel obnoxious, I think. He was very good for sure, but I guess they want to do some more subtle nerfs to aggressive Bilgewater strategies, and this is one of the options there that sort of makes the deck a bit more fragile, makes it easier to defend with deal 1 stuff like Veil, the 2-mana deal 1 spells, Static Shock out of PNZ and all that stuff, and a bunch of random 1 attack utility units to trade. The card will still probably see mostly the same amount of play. It will be a little less attractive in non-aggressive decks, potentially, but since there aren't really any better options, I think it will mostly stay in the decks that it's in. Now we come to the controversial one, and the one that seems kind of crazy to me. So now Bastion gives the spell shield permanently, which actually would have been a nice change, I think, since the fact that it was this round was a bit weak in a way and made the card kind of a bit underwhelming. But in the way it played out in the end, even though it looked pretty good when it came out. But the fact that it's not permanent is nice, but the fact that they somehow decided to throw in a +1/+1, a permanent +1/+1 for free is just ludicrous to me. So yeah, this is just insane. The card is completely overblown. They already admitted to that on Twitter that might be the case, that they might have made a mistake, and that they will potentially adjust the cost in the next balance patch. So it'll probably cost 4. Honestly, I would rather see it stay the way it is and lose the +1/+1, and then we're cool. Because I think it's pretty nice to have some limited defensive protective interaction that works with your spell mana, and Bastion is, I think, kind of in a range of what it can do, where it being playable with spell mana is less of a problem than Deny was. And it moving to 4 just to give like a permanent +1/+1 would be a bit sad, but we'll see. But yeah, for now this is gonna be like a big change and people will try all kinds of decks with this. It is gonna be a 3-off now in the Lee Sin Dragon Kick deck easily, and there will be like only 1 or 2 Deny anymore probably, and then there might be an alternative like Fiora Targon deck similar to the Shen Fiora deck. We'll see how that plays out, and probably a couple of things I'm not even thinking about right now. Then we have Cosmic Inspiration. This card was also pretty powerful, pretty impactful, and fairly cheap at effectively 4 mana. And now they removed the like spell mana refresh, so now it's a hard 7 mana you need to invest, making it much more of a tempo commitment, and also weaker if you pull it with something like Living Legends, where it kind of just gave you a lot of free roll power. So a good change, but all in all, a lot of the Celestial stuff is still kind of overtuned, especially Living Legend, I think. Next we have Grandfather Rumo. I mean, the card's actually not that bad in a vacuum. Like, it's an 8 attack overwhelm spell shield threat, which is pretty nice. He now buffs 2 units with +4 health permanently. Problem is, he can't target himself, so you need like 2 good targets in play for that to even do that much. And I honestly can't think of any deck that would ever play this over like Infinite Mind Splitter or just like even want an 8-drop like that. This is actually kind of a nice sort of top-end finisher, but we don't, like, Targon decks don't play in a way that they want kind of like a 1-of or 2-of Faron style top-end finisher that kind of just knocks them over the head, because the Faron decks, the like Targon decks that go in that direction are like Mind Splitter, Aurelion Soul type decks. So this card is in like a really like kind of awkward spot where it doesn't make any sense, I think, in the way Targon wants to play. So yeah, I don't know, this card has an identity crisis, I think, or like a purpose crisis. Next we have Hush. So first off, this is like the first change in patch 1.11. But they already said they will make another change, probably, that they are testing for the next patch. Kind of weird that they already said like that they readied another change, so they kind of like locked in it. Not sure why they didn't go with it right away. I don't know, it's a bit strange. Maybe they're like not 100% sure. But yeah, basically now the fleeting copy costs 1 more. So I think that means the fleeting copy, it goes like 3-4-5, not like 3-4-4. So you can only Hush 3 times per turn maximum that way, instead of before where it was 4. So that matters, and it's a bit harder to Hush twice, which is the scenario that's most likely after hushing a single time. But all in all, it doesn't change that much, I think. It also still gives you a free card to like turn into another card with something like Sketcher and stuff like that. So yeah, what they will do going forward, they said, is they'll remove Hush's repeatable aspect entirely and reduce its cost. This change should focus on Hush on its core intended function and generally reduce frustration when playing against it. I think that's a good change. I'm not sure how I feel about the cost reduction. Like, making Hush cost 2 will basically make it a straight up better Purify, since there's very, very few fringe situations where the permanency of Purify outweighs the flexibility of Hush hushing champions. So I don't know about that, but like the thing is, it will still kind of probably end up in a similar role as Purify, where it's kind of a fringe like metagame type call. Other than that, probably a 1-off Hush in a lot of decks is more of a free roll universal kind of answer thing that you can do compared to Purify, which depends a bit more on enough good follower targets to see play in constructed, while Purify, while Hush as a one-off will be kind of like a nice safety net to have, especially when it's cheaper. But yeah, I think that's a good change since, as they mentioned here, on the other hand, repeatable AoE access to silence is difficult to justify in a region that we also want to have a general weakness against whiteboards in combat. And they also mentioned, ultimately the ability to silence champions is a core strength. Oh yeah, here's the part that I wanted to highlight. However, Hush's repeated fleeting design is also contributing to the opposite by excessively punishing certain strategies and itself shutting down counterplay opportunities. Since before they mentioned that they initially were excited about Hush and came up with its ability to silence even champions for a round was meant to add to LOR's interactivity, allowing previously unavailable counterplay to certain strategies and combinations. Which is, I guess, okay. But yeah, the fact that the opponent just hushes, has mana left, can hush again means you have no counterplay. You can't like rebuff a unit in combat, they'll just hush it again for free and your unit's dead. So the simple fact that they could means they get that for 0 mana because you cannot throw away a card just for them to, like, you're basically throwing away a card while they throw away 3 mana, and that's a horrible trade. So effectively it just negates any way in your hand to sort of protect the unit in combat, for example. And I think that's like a big part of the oppressiveness of Hush, and where it kind of like actually shuts down interaction rather than opens up interaction. Sure, it like gives you more angles of interaction for Hush, but as soon as you start hushing, you basically shut down any counterplay or interaction happening from your opponent's side because they just get punished by free hushes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to no more fleeting Hush. Although it's a bit weird because it will definitely like massively change the identity of the card, but ultimately it's for the better because Hush is not a very fun card. And that will like make a fair share of possible strategies come back that Hush would completely obliterate right now. So we'll see how that plays. And there will probably only be like 1 of Hushes in some decks and 0 Hushes in a fair share of Targon decks in that scenario. And maybe very few 2-offs. And last but not least, we have Mountain Goat get a buff. Now, Mountain Goat is a very solid 2-cost 3/2 that on strike creates a gem. So that card's amazing. I'm gonna jam 3 of those into the Lee Sin Dragon Kick deck. This card is really nice. It also is a great fit for said Targon Fiora deck that I want to try. So yeah, nice card, and open some more sort of lower to the ground unit-based, non-big deck, non-Nightfall aggro Targon options, which is nice. And we get a new Guardian, like a celestial butterfly thingy. Not really my style, but I'm sure there will be people that like it. This is another well-done card pack. Not necessarily my preference either, but once again, really well done. They have been like crushing it with the card packs. Most of the card pack design looks really, really good, really nice. This kind of looks like a wood carving. Yeah, just really well done. And we also get the blue caster minion, which I personally think looks cooler than the red one, and you can even get both. And not sure if this is 2 emotes or 1, but it seems like it's only 1 emote, like you jelly. And you can get all of this as a bundle. Then there's a new single player lab, sort of like a single player campaign sort of thing. Journey to the Peak, which is cool, kind of like a PvE Leona or Diana sort of thing. It's kind of like the adventure stuff in Hearthstone, the single player campaign stuff. So that's kind of a cool direction, and I'm sure there will be people that, like especially more casual players, that will really love this sort of stuff. And we finally get in-game leaderboards. Thank God, no more like hourly updated like third-party checking for like, yeah, stats and stuff. So yeah, that was much needed to mitigate the way that we are not seeing our rank anymore. I still would prefer to have our rank shown as well in the client rather than having to check the leaderboard. And yeah, there's still some things needed, like we need to see our opponent's rank during the game. Ideally, we want to see the player icons during the game, because otherwise, what's the point of having the player icon like on the loading screen and that's it? That's random. And more changes to expedition archetypes. I haven't touched an expedition in forever. Additional language support. And a nice miscellaneous change. We've made match history available through the Riot Games API, so you may start seeing match history related features on community side, which is pretty cool. And some small bug fixes. So yeah, that's the patch. Actually a bit smaller patch than I expected. A bunch of sort of like kind of marginal, nonsensical changes. This is not a nonsensical change, it's kind of a nice one, but it's marginal. This is kind of an irrelevant change, honestly. And this one is also honestly kind of irrelevant. And I don't know, I hope this shakes things up enough to make the format kind of fun and interesting again, but it might have to wait till like the next patch to be the case, which is really sad. I really haven't been enjoying the way things play right now. And then there's also the issue of something seemingly being wrong with the ranked system. Like, you had 0 LP, get paired against people with more LP than you, and you only win 15 LP per win, and you lose like 19 to 23 LP or something, losing to people that are higher ranked than you. How does that make any sense? That's like the opposite of an elo system. It's super punishing, and it's really swingy and frustrating. And when they rolled out the system, they said it will be centered around 20. So if someone of similar rank, you gain and lose 20. So if you had 0 LP and play someone at 50 LP, the LP difference is probably small enough that you win-lose around 19 to 21, and something like that. And if you high-ranked and get paired against someone low, you lose like 25, and if you beat someone that's notably lower than you are, you only gain 15 to sort of keep points from ballooning too much and people sort of plateauing at where they are at a certain win rate and doing well a certain amount. But right now it's basically the opposite. Like, I have talked about this on stream a bunch. I don't know of anyone that has gained more than 15 LP per win, while people are losing like 20 plus LP left and right per loss, even against opponents with 50 to 100 LP more, or even more than that. It's absurd. This can't be intended. There was no announcement of any change of that sort, and it's particularly terrible right now because, at least in Europe, there's the qualification run for the tournament going, and my general like dissatisfaction with the format right now, and combined with this sort of seemingly pretty striking issue with the ranked system, makes trying to climb and playing ranked really frustrating right now. So yeah, I'll hope Riot comes forward about this, says if this is intended and why and how, or if this is just an issue and they fix it ASAP. Because the way they announced the LP system and introduced it, this has to be a bug, this has to be an issue. It works completely different than what it used to last season, and they said it will. So there's a big problem with the LP right now. Or they changed something without letting us know to avoid, I don't know, people ballooning the LP like Ultraman did last month with more than 5,000 LP. But then they should have announced it, should have explained it and made it very clear rather than just do it and have people deal with it. Anyway, that's the balance patch. Let me know in the comments what you think about the changes and the scope of the balance patch and so on. Curious to hear your thoughts. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. And we'll give the new patch a shot at the next stream. Either maybe later today, like a late stream, or tomorrow. Don't forget on your way out, if you enjoy the content, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notification icon to not miss out on future content, leave a comment, share it with your friends, all the good stuff. That's again for this time. I'm your host, ManuS. I thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.